to Providence. I didn't have one. I was looking for one. I sent out a note on a mailing list of the Bears, and one person replied saying, well, he lives in New London, and his office is, at the time was in Pawcatuck. Right. And he said, so that's as far from Providence as it was back to my old doctor. But he said, but there's this great, Daddy Bear doctor, and he gave me his name. So I looked up his name in his office and his number, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And so for 6 months, I had his name and information underneath my desk protector on my office. So I was looking at his name.
All the time.
So finally, we were introduced from a poet, common friend at the Lambda conference. And we both sort of like, oh, I know of you. So, and we had a very, very rapid sort of romance and courtship. And 6 months later, after we met, I proposed. And 6 months after that, we were married in P-Town, on the spot where we first smooched.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It was very romantic, yes.
Oh.
Nice. And then, so that was the year that Massachusetts instituted gay marriage. And then almost a year later, we had civil unions in Connecticut. And so on October 1st, we went to Hartford and was one of the first couples, or the first dozen couples, to get a civil union in Connecticut.
Wow. That is so wonderful.
So, and now this October, it's it's like rollover. Apparently it will automatically.
It should automatically roll over.
Yeah. Even though Connecticut would automatically be reciprocal.
Right.
So it's been very exciting here in Connecticut to be here, and while this process is really sort of rolling through New England, it's very exciting.
And I've been surprised as we've had guests on and we've talked to them, how much history of the GLBT movement in general has not necessarily been focused in Connecticut, but right around this region.
Yeah, well,
Mass, Connecticut, New York.
Boston was very, very important. And
sometimes it's nice being caught between Boston and New York.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's great here, and I really love New London. I would never have expected to be here, but in a certain way, I can sort of remember back to my childhood and thinking, this is the area of the United States that I always wanted to live in. Like Rhode Island, Connecticut, this part of coastal New England.
Right.
So it's really great here, and glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here, and it's interesting that this part of the country, we are so progressive, and we're really very pleased about this. Well, for the most part, I mean, you look at.
We had bad news out of New Hampshire today.
Well,
there
are some.
I didn't catch that.
New Hampshire House or Senate, whomever was voting on the marriage equality bill in New Hampshire, they shot it down.
Oh.
They would have been the 6th state in the country. Now they
Wow.
get to wish they were the 6th state in the country.
Yes.
It's just a matter of time, though. I mean,
Yep. No.
And what up with Rhode Island? They're just dilly-dallying along.
Yeah.
Which is
we haven't
surprising,
had much news out of Rhode Island.
Considering how,
They've had a lot of ruling protections in place for a long time. It's really surprising that they haven't, legislated something.
My understanding is that they're waiting until the Republican governor gets out, because Carcieri apparently has vowed to
Veto whatever.
So they're waiting. So why bother?
Yeah. Don't get people
Right.
spun up.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes
they do.
sense.
Apparently, they do have a plan.
They do have a plan.
Settle for little Rhodey.
Trust the madness.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Bears, you've also written on bisexual men.
Yes.
Which is sort of your other field of endeavor.
Yeah. Well, it sort of led from one topic to another. I was working on an article on bi bears, and interviewed a friend in Boston by the name of Pete Schiavone. And I had always been, sort of, interested in bisexuality. I've had, over the course of my sexual life, had a great many encounters as well as relationships with bisexual men, some married, some not. And I mean, I've always had a certain amount of attraction to women myself. If you're familiar with the Kinsey scale, which
Right.
posits sexuality as a spectrum from 0 to 6, 0, being completely, absolutely heterosexual, 100%, and
If you can find that one person.
if you can find, yes, if you can find them, there's one somewhere. And then the Kinsey 6 is completely homosexual, but there's this great big area in between that's all gray. So I've always sort of considered myself kind of a Kinsey 5. I've always had some sort of, very, very real attraction to women, but although I've, been predominantly attracted to men. So in any case, so as I started to learn more about bisexuality and started to look at the literature and such, I realized that there was this lacuna of information about bisexual men. Most of the academic stuff, as well as the popular stuff that's been written about bisexuality, has been about bi women and bisexual women as well. And I thought, well, I mean, this was really, considering that, some of the surveys that have been conducted indicate that there are at least as many bisexuals as there are homosexuals. Sure. I thought the fact that there was absolutely nothing in the literature about bisexual men really, really weird.
Yeah.
And so I started investigating it, and I said, this is really an underserved population here.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And so with Pete, who was my original interviewee, it didn't make it into Bears on Bears, but we decided that we were going to edit a book of coming out stories by bisexual men. And so that's what my second nonfiction book, By Men Coming Out, is about. It's a collection of about 3 dozen coming out stories from men all across the spectrum. Really, there includes cross-dressers, Patrick Califia, who is a very well-known trans writer and author, contributed. There are, coming out stories from men like myself who are, more on the gay side, as well as a great many stories from married men, who we normally think of as, when you normally say bisexual men, you normally think of married men who are on the down low or cheating.
Right.
But the truth is that there are so many different kinds of bisexual men, and a great many of them are completely unconflicted about their bisexuality.
Right.
And so, there is one of the things that I started to become aware of is this sort of phenomenon that's called bisexual erasure. And it's this tendency for gay men and